Okay, it's saying preparing live streaming preview. So it hasn't started previewing on Facebook yet. Mm.
Am I ready? Good morning, everyone. We are excited as we look forward to our BMW kickoff for 2020. We see that we have participants that are just coming on, so we're going to wait just a few minutes. Good to see you, Jacob and Bryson Lilly. We're going to wait just a few more minutes before Dr. Cleveland and I will give our welcome, and then Ms. Vita Stewart will introduce our guest speaker for today. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is kind of bittersweet for all of us that are part of the BMW Board of Directors and staff. We're so used to seeing hundreds of you pour into First Baptist Bracktown as we kick off our school year for the BMW Academy, where our mission is to educate, motivate, and activate the potential for excellence that lies within every African American male. So we are not going to let the fact that we have a pandemic keep us from our mentoring, our tutoring, and all the things we do to help our young men to be successful. And so we are excited, and we are just thrilled to have all of you all today to be a part of this kickoff. We have a dynamic speaker that is going to educate us today on the dehumanization of boys of color in the United States. And parents, please make sure you take some notes. You will also have the opportunity to ask questions. You can put things in the chat because we want this to be interactive, okay? So Dr. Cleveland, will you come on now and give your welcome as chairman of the BMW board? And then Ms. Vita Stewart will introduce our speaker, and then we're going to get to it.
All right, good morning, everyone. As Roz said, we are glad. We're not going to let these different times stop us from doing what we need to do and support our young men. And so we appreciate you all joining us today. It's going to be like this for a little while, so we're going to press on virtually, and we're going to support you all throughout the school year. And anytime throughout this school year, you need to reach out to us if you need support and things of that nature. And we're going to go a little more detail later on with our parent and middle school and high school meetings after our webinar. And so I'll talk to you all more in detail. Once again, welcome this morning, and we appreciate you all joining us. We'll move over to Vita Stewart so she can introduce our speaker today. And please send some questions in and talk to our speaker, make this interactive, as Roz said. All right, Vita.
All right. Good morning, BMW family. And we are excited. Even in these unprecedented times, we're ready for unprecedented moments. And so we are so excited to have Dr. Rhonda Bryant. We are just elated with the expertise that she brings. She is the president, CEO at the Moriah Group, an international consulting firm based in Huntsville, Alabama. Dr. Bryant has over 20 years of work experience focused on issues of children of color across age span of birth to young adulthood in the areas of program development and public policy advocacy. Her expertise has been integral to advancing the national work on BMOC through her prior work with Forward Promise and other initiatives. She holds a bachelor's degree in human services, a master's degree in urban affairs and public policy, and a doctorate in education leadership. And we have firsthand account of what we're about ready to witness. Roz and I were able to attend a session with Dr. Bryant during COSBOC this summer, and we learned so much. Our notepads were full, and we knew that the BMW family would be blessed by her presence. So please welcome Dr. Bryant, and we're so excited about what you're going to share and help us with today. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Vita. It really is an honor to be with you all today, to be able to share and to talk about the beauty and humanity of our boys and ways that we disrupt the dehumanization that occurs in our society and turn that on its head to ensure that our young people can heal, grow, and to thrive. So I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see the slides as we talk today. This is intended to be interactive. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to ask you all to drop some things in the chat so that we can talk. And so I am looking forward to our time together. So every presentation that I do, I start with my why. These are my two littles at my house. I have a 15-year-old young man in the 10th grade, and I have a 7-year-old daughter in the 2nd grade. And the work that I have done for the last 20 or 25 years has always been focused on our Black children and making sure that they have the best opportunities possible to thrive in society. And certainly when I gave birth to my son 15 years ago, it shifted my focus a little bit to specifically hone in on our boys and the ways that society mistreats them, but the ways that we as parents have the opportunity to wrap our arms around them and give them a new reality and a new vision for life, despite what our society says. So I love this word art that my staff created. You know, Black boys are, you know, we hear so many negative words about what Black boys are. But there are so many positive and beautiful things that they are. And we have to be conscious always of pouring into them those positive words. So I'm going to ask our young men, drop in the chat one of the words that is on that screen that you believe represents who you are and who you strive to be in life. And I'm realizing I may not be able to see our chat as I am sharing my screen with the slides. We're going to try to figure that out.
But they're saying gifted, a lot of kings, a lot of ambitious, brave king, noble, playful, gifted, hopeful,
yes.
friendly, diligent. All of those words are being thrown into the chat box.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, and they are piling in. It is awesome. It just thrills my heart.
Yeah.
Confident.
Yes.
Intelligent. Honest. Brave. Eager. Oh my God. Worthy.
Yes. I love it. I love it. Because, you know, our society tells us a different story, but we know who we are. And as parents, we know who our children are, and we know who we are striving to craft them into being as they grow into adulthood. And we have to keep these positive words in front of us at all times to counteract the negative stereotypes that may be swirling in society, and keep these words at the front of their minds. So thank you all for doing that. I appreciate it. So what are we going to cover today? So we're going to talk about three basic things. The first is, what is thriving? And the second is, what keeps our Black boys from thriving? And then finally, we're going to talk a bit about how do we raise our Black boys to thrive here in America. So this time I'm going to ask a question of the parents. Drop into the chat, what is your definition of thriving? When you think about what you see for your young man as he's growing, what are you striving for? What do you see his life looking like? Drop some of those comments into the chat.
One parent says academic and financially successful.
Continuing to higher education.
Yes.
Greatness. To reach his full potential.
Yes.
Prosperity.
Growing, enterprising.
Leader.
Yes.
Confident, pushing towards their goal.
Fulfilling his purpose.
Independent living.
I love it. I love it.
Tranquility, yes. Wanting and giving more.
To be the best that he can be.
Stability and able to do what he needs to do.
Trendsetter.
Dreaming and accomplishing with the help of God.
Mentally and financially stable.
Self-sufficient, a forward thinker.
Oh my gosh, these are awesome. Healthy and strong. An encourager.
I love that growth mindset.
Yeah, I like that one too. We had a little technological difficulty. Our speaker dropped off for just a minute. We're working with technology to get her back in. So y'all just keep talking to your sons about the potential you have for them, and young men, you keep thinking about all that's in you, and she'll be right back.
And while you are adding to the chat box and we're waiting for Dr. Bryant, also add to the chat box, what's the difference between surviving and thriving? What do you think we mean by that? What's the difference between surviving and thriving? And I think she put thriving in there on that PowerPoint for a reason. What do we mean? What's the difference between surviving and thriving?
It said surviving is doing enough just to get by. Thriving is being able to reach your goals.
Exactly.
Good, you all doing great. Keep them coming.
Surviving what is good enough, but not moving forward. Being able to overcome the negative stereotypes that this world has put on young Black men is thriving.
Oh, that's,
Surviving is doing the bare minimum. Thriving, you're meeting your goals. My own analogy was that it's like when you're in the water, surviving is just trying to keep your head above the water. But when you're thriving, you're swimming and moving towards a destination.
good. Oh, someone said when you're thriving, you have tools.
I love the knowing and understanding the power of yet.
Yo, I love that too, Miss Vita.
Thriving is purpose-driven to accomplish things and goals. Surviving is just getting by to live.
Mm.
Surviving is mediocrity, but thriving is a cut above.
I like that.
Yeah, y'all gonna make me have a bunch of hashtags today.
I agree. Y'all are doing it.
I'm telling you, the message is so powerful this morning that somebody's trying to block it, but we're gonna get it through.
That's right, Miss Vita. We're gonna keep going. She's about to get back in, so we're not gonna let.
It's a powerful word that we need to hear to help us to move forward during these both of these racial and physical pandemics.
Yeah.
Did we start with the creed? Maybe we need to start with the creed. Maybe that's what happened.
I do. I agree, Miss Vita. Maybe that's what we need to do. So, fellas, wherever you are, and parents, you make sure they're saying it, because they cannot forget this creed. So let's do it together. I promise to give my very best
to achieve my every goal,
to be faithful and disciplined with everything in my control. Learning as much as I can, for knowledge is the key. There's nothing I cannot do, but the first step starts with me. I represent my family, even my community as a whole, and I refuse to let negativity keep me from my goal. I will exceed and as I go on in life.
If I just have faith and believe,
there's nothing that I cannot achieve. That's what thriving is. Keeping that creed. Keeping it before us. Is the creed in the website? For those of you who are new to BMW and you want to know the creed, please go out on the website. It is there. And so you can get your son, if you kind of forgotten it, like I stumbled over a few minutes ago, please go out on the website. That's www.bmwacademyky.org. creed.org. So go back out and on our website, get that creed. And parents, we have the creed out there for you too.
Thank you. I didn't want to forget the parents. There is a creed for them.
We got the creed for them, and it's out on the website too. So the next time we come together, we're going to have you all stand up and say the creed. All right. So we got to make sure our young men not just memorize the creed, but they internalize it. And we want you to do the same. And while we're waiting for Dr. Bryant to come back, one of the things that we're going to be doing this year as a part of something new and different with BMW Academy is that we're going to offer parenting seminars every other month. And so, especially as we go through this pandemic, as we're doing virtual learning and all of the things that are going on, we want to be a blessing to you as well as to your sons. And so we're going to be doing some parenting things, how to help your child to make it in virtual learning, how to survive the pandemic. So we're going to have this. So today is our kickoff is with the parents is the first one. So the next one will be in November. So you will always be emailed and notified whenever we're having a parent session. So Dr. Bryant is back. Praise the Lord. Dr. Bryant?
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. I am so sorry, you all. All of a
The
sudden,
devil is a liar.
That's right. We're waiting on this powerful word.
That's right. The devil's trying to stop us, but we ain't gonna let him.
Well, I have to tell you all, I sat at my desk this morning and prayed about this time that we were going to spend together and prayed about this presentation. And we're not going to let this derail us.
Well, while you were out, Dr. Bryant, Dr. Cleveland asked the boys, you talked about, you had started with what is thriving.
Yes.
The parents gave some great responses. So while you were out, he asked them, what is the difference between thriving and surviving? And
yes.
we had some awesome responses to that. That the parents and the boys came with some great responses. So they know that there is a difference between thriving and surviving. So you take it from here.
Okay. Okay. So I think the third question that I want to ask then is, what keeps Black boys from thriving? When you think about the society that we live in, what are some of the things that are hindering our ability to thrive? And while you all are dropping some answers, and I'm going to pull the slides back up.
Racial stereotypes, racism, ignorance, mindset, lack of confidence, implicit biases,
Lack of resources, peer pressure.
mental sickness,
Yes.
low expectations from teachers.
Whoa.
Yes. All of those things.
Lack of family support.
Can you all see those?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
No, ma'am, I'm not seeing your slides.
Not yet.
No, ma'am. There they go.
There they
you
go.
are.
Okay, okay.
Okay, that's
All
good.
right. So we live in a society that sees our boys like this. They see them as culprits. They see them in ways that are harmful to their ability to thrive. And all of that, all of the answers that you all gave comes under this word of dehumanization. And we define dehumanization as this process by which either an individual or a whole group's full humanity is denied, either through perceptions or actual treatment. And so when we think about the ways that Black people in society generally are regarded, there are so many examples of the way that their humanity or our humanity is denied. And it results in us being treated differently. And that has consequences. So we're going to take a little time to now go through some of the definitions of the different types of dehumanization that we see, and then we'll shift our attention to talk about solutions. So dehumanization happens in a cycle. And it begins with this negative narrative about who Black people are, and specifically about who Black boys are. And we know the stereotypes. Boys are considered dangerous, they're considered destructive, they're considered lazy or apathetic, womanizers who can't keep a job, abusers of drugs and alcohol. These are some of the negative perceptions that are raised about Black boys and men in our society, which we as Black people know to be untrue. However, these negative narratives that we see playing out in the media, so for example, whenever we see an issue with a young man, the first thing that we see are that pictures of them that cast them in a bad light, or what the media uses to talk about those stories. All of these negative narratives fuel dangerous actions in our society that are taken towards our boys and young men. So one example of that is when we think about the over-incarceration of Black youth, both boys and girls. It is rooted in a narrative that says that our boys are dangerous and destructive and should be incarcerated rather than being given other opportunities. So there are many examples of public policies, of actions in schools that are taken against our children because of the way that they have been labeled. And we understand that these dangerous actions, such as bad public policy, bad practices in schools, et cetera, yield harmful outcomes for our boys. So we know that there's research that tells us that Black boys who are subject to racism and dehumanization suffer from depression and sleeplessness, suffer from substance abuse, suffer from obesity. And all of these are related back to issues of racism and dehumanization that have happened in their lives. Unfortunately, what happens is then when our children exhibit negative behaviors, they are blamed and punished for those behaviors. And thus this cycle of dehumanization and a negative narrative begins all over again. And it is the pattern and the way that we have seen in society for generations. This is not something that's new. This is something that has been a part of our society as Black people for hundreds of years. And we have to think about and find ways to disrupt this cycle in order for our young people to thrive. So when we talk about dehumanization and the trauma that it creates, we talk about 5 dimensions. The first dimension is historical, the second, cultural and spiritual, the third, emotional, fourth, physical, and sixth, social. So these are 5 dimensions or 5 ways that dehumanization shows up in our society. And what I want to do is take a little time to define each of them. And again, I'm going to ask both our boys and our parents to drop some examples into the chat as we talk about each of these dimensions or domains that we see in society. So the first, historical dehumanization. It's defined as the thoughts, feelings, and actions that have led to the mass destruction, punishment, or control of land and people. Certainly when we look across different peoples of color, so our Native American populations, our Latina populations, this also holds true. But when we speak specifically about the African American experience, we begin that historical dehumanization with the story of slavery. However, there's a parable that says, the lion's story won't be told if the hunter is the one to tell it. And so the story of who we are as Black people, how we came to this country, how slavery has impacted us, if it's told from the perspective of whites, we will never get the full picture and the full story of what has happened and who we are as Black people. So I want you all think and drop in the chat, how do you think the story of our history of Black people has been told inaccurately here in America?
Someone said whitewash,
Mm-hmm.
that Black men don't take care of their children,
Mm-hmm.
not enough facts.
It hasn't been told.
Absolutely.
The black
And
men are lazy.
mm-hmm.
It's been sugar coated
Yes. Yes.
that we are a threat.
That we're slaves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Our
All of
inventions
those.
have been stolen.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are on government assistance.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoyed being slaves. We're not human.
Yes.
We're uneducated,
Mm-hmm.
dishonest.
Yes. All of these are examples of the way that our history has been twisted. And even the fact that the story of our history begins with slavery, as opposed to beginning prior to that, when we think about the history and the story of our peoples on the continent of Africa. All of those are examples of the way that our history has been distorted and we have been dehumanized, and it has created a narrative about who we are, and that as Black people, we are here merely to work in service of others here in the United States, none of which is true. Similarly, when we move to this notion of cultural and spiritual dehumanization, that's defined as the thoughts, feelings, and actions that demonize, disregard, devalue, or marginalize the cultural and spiritual practices of communities of color. And we know that our culture as Black people is beautiful. Here in America, as well as on the continent of Africa, our ways of being, of dressing, wearing our hair, our ways of singing, even the way that we walk is imitated. But oftentimes there are also aspects of our culture that are punished, or we are punished for carrying out our culture, even though others are able to take aspects of our culture and monetize it. So for example, our young men's style of dress is often treated as thuggish, and they are targeted by police, et cetera, for their way of dressing. But to be honest with you, a white young man could dress in the same exact outfit and not be regarded or seen in the same way. So when you think about our culture, about our ways of being and living and loving on each other as Black people, what are some of the ways that our culture is not seen as valuable? What are some of the things from our culture that are taken and misused?
Music,
Mm-hmm.
hair,
Mm-hmm.
inventions,
Yes.
fashion,
Mm-hmm.
creativity,
Yes.
natural talent,
Mm-hmm.
our food.
Yes. Absolutely.
Somebody said everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, they want our style, but they don't want our struggles and our pain, right?
My
That is,
grandson wanted to say they love they want our personalities, our boldness.
yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And we walk in a certain boldness and a certain self-assurance that is often emulated in society. But unfortunately, when we walk in that way, it's treated negatively. So those are all examples of cultural and spiritual dehumanization. The third area is social dehumanization. And these are the actions that divert resources or fail to invest resources in our communities. This is also the dehumanization that restricts our rights and the rights of our communities in the social, educational, and legal arenas. And we see that over and over and over again when we think about the differences in the infrastructure of schools, for example, that are predominantly Black versus predominantly white. And we think about issues like Flint and the water supply being contaminated only in Black communities. When we think about lack of after-school programs, for example, in our communities, these are examples of resources being taken away or not invested in our communities when they are invested in other places. Are there other examples that you all can think of social dehumanization? We can drop a couple of those in the chat.
housing, lack of research in areas of medicine that impact the Black community, negative images in the media, family conditions,
Mm-hmm.
banking,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
family health,
Yep.
loans, pipeline to prison,
Yes.
lack of nutritional and financial knowledge.
Mm-hmm. All of those solid examples of the ways that social dehumanization shows up in our society and limits our abilities to thrive. The next area is emotional dehumanization. So these are the thoughts, feelings, and actions that limit expressions of empathy toward communities of color or demonize our communities for their outcry in the face of negative experiences. So I think about, this time of racial unrest that we have experienced while we're also going through COVID, and the ways in which we've seen protests being carried out in communities in the face of the killing of several Black men and women over the course of the last few months. And just the fact that in the media, Black people have been demonized for their outcry of protest, have actually been asked, why are you all in the streets? Why are you all protesting? Why are you all making such noise about this? That is a form of emotional dehumanization. The expectation that as Black people, when negative things happen to us, we are supposed to bottle it up and keep it pushing, as opposed to being able to say freely that this is not right, we are not going to stand for it, and the demand for justice. And the last area, physical dehumanization. These are the thoughts, feelings, and actions that place the physical bodies of members of our community at risk of harm. The picture in this particular slide is a school resource officer tipping a desk over, basically body slamming a Black student onto the ground. And certainly we also, in these last few months and over the last several years have experienced over and over again instances of police brutality, instances of other white citizens in our society brutalizing and killing our young people. This is a serious, deeply ingrained form of dehumanization that has its roots in not regarding Black people as human themselves, and thinking that lives can be taken without consequence. So all of these forms of dehumanization carry with them a weight and a trauma, because there are messages that are being fed to us as a people, and particularly to our Black boys, that say that our culture is invisible, we come from a shameful history, our bodies are threats, our communities are hopeless and lack value, that we have to accept the abuse and pain that happens in our society, and tells us that we are worthless and expendable. And so these messages swirl in our society, they're in the air, and they're internalized by our young people. And the research shows us that there is actual specific and significant impact. So young people, Black young people in particular, who have experienced racism and dehumanization exhibit higher blood pressure, higher body mass index, higher levels of stress hormone in their body. They have poorer sleep patterns. They express depression symptoms as well as lower self-esteem. All of these are connected specifically to experiencing racism in our society. And this is something that America does not take accountability for, but it is something that we have to battle against and have to fight for our children for, and also something that as parents, we have to be mindful of, that there are physical manifestations of racism that have happened and are happening in their bodies, that we need to be careful of. And so when we think about the society in which we live, there are three rings of influence around our children where dehumanization or reclaiming the humanity of our children takes place. The first is this macro system, which is the furthest away from them. It is the history of our country, the social conditions in our country, the laws that are passed, the economic system and structures that are wrapped around us all. And the second layer that's a little bit closer to them is the influence and the impact of the schools that they go to, the neighborhoods that they live in, the extended family that has influence on their lives, the media, as well as even the environments where we as parents are in, and the way that our work environment that impacts on our ability to parent. All of that has an effect on our young men. And finally, the closest ring, which is our family, our peers, and our siblings. All of that has an impact on our ability to thrive. And all of that has the importance and the ability to affect how our young men move in society. And so our goal, I think, has to be the building and the restoration of hope for our boys and young men as they navigate the world every single day. And as those rings of influence impact how they function in society. And I put up here this definition of hope. It is the anticipation of a future that is good. Based on mutuality, it's a sense of personal competence and coping ability. It is a psychological well-being and having a purpose and meaning in life and a sense of the possible. And so we have so much still to be hopeful for, and we still have to be making sure that our young people walk with a sense of purpose and meaningful in their lives and a sense of what is possible in the face of and in spite of a society that is attempting to dehumanize them. And so how do we do that? I work with an organization, we partner with an organization called the National Compadres Network, and they have a model that I think is beautiful. They say that all children have 4 basic questions that they ask in life. The first is, am I wanted or am I valued? The second is, what is my purpose in life? The third question is, how do I fulfill my purpose in life? How do I get there? And the fourth is, where do I go or to whom do I go for guidance, support, and healing? And in their work, they say that these are the 4 questions that their young men are asking every day in their lives. And as parents, our responsibility is for childhood teachings to teach our children that 1, they are welcomed and that they are a blessing, that 2, they have a sacred purpose in life, 3, that there are teachings and a path to guide them through life and to guide them to their sacred purpose. And 4th, that they have a safe place and secure places to learn, to heal, and to develop so that they can become everything that they were designed and ordained to be. And so how do we do that practically is the question, right? So what do Black boys need on a day-to-day basis in order to fulfill their purpose and get to their place of purpose in life? And at Forward Promise, we say that there are 5 things: protection, connection, affection, direction, and correction. And we'll walk through what that looks like in society. And so what are the steps that as parents we can take to provide these 5 things for our boys? And then for the young men, what are the things that you can do to do that in your peer group? Because you all have the ability to protect one another and to build bridges and ensure connection with one another, to be affectionate and help to direct your peers in ways that are important as well. So the first thing, we continue to bring up these 3 rings, these 3 facets of how young people are impacted. So the first is protection from societal dehumanization. And how do we do that? We do that through shielding our young people from the things that could potentially have a negative impact in our society in age-appropriate ways, of course, because we can't raise our children to think that none of these things are existing in society, but giving them the information in doses rather than them experiencing it all at one time is a form of protection. protecting them from negative places or people or experiences in their daily lives. So when we think about the dehumanization, for example, that may happen in schools, the protection that we provide as parents is any negative interactions that they have in school is really weighing it seriously against what is the thing that my child has to take accountability for, but is this actually a dehumanizing act against my child because he is Black? And if that is the case, what is my goal then in protecting them from that negative or harmful action being taken against them? So we have a role around standing up and having to protect our children from negative influences that could derail them when it actually is not their fault. And the third is protection from negativity in close relationships, being guarded about peer relationships and whether or not their peer relationships actually reinforce humanity or reinforce dehumanizing stereotypes. And that's for their peer groups and even sometimes, unfortunately, for family members. We all know that not every family member is on the side of right when it comes to loving and protecting our young people. And so those are some of the roles that we have around protection. When we think about connection, we think about on this large scale, the outer yellow ring, connection, to their cultural history and traditions, and then connection to family history and traditions. What is it that we should be teaching our children about our culture, reframing the historical teachings about who Black people are, but also reframing the family history about who their ancestors have been. Telling the stories of your great-grandfather did this or your grandmother did that, and making a connection for them to greatness and to value in their families. The second area of connection is connecting to community institutions that value them. So, I think about all of you being connected to this BMW program. That is a community institution that values them, and that connection is important and carries them through life. Connection to extended family members who will also pour positivity into them. And then deep connections to mother, father, caregiver, and peers. And I always stop here and I say, regardless of our family construct, making sure that the connections are strong and meaningful and that the bonds are strong between both parents, or if you are a caregiver who is not a parent, making sure those connections and bonds are strong and meaningful and that they know that they have a safe place to come to. The third is affection. Our young men need to feel love and validation from their culture, from their workplaces, if they have, part-time jobs, things like that, from society. Are they in places where they feel loved and validation in their societal relationships, in their community institutions and relationships, and then in their homes? Do they feel love and validation in the BMW program, for example? And I know for sure that the answer there is yes. Do they feel that they are connected to people in their lives who validate their experiences, validate their feelings, and make them feel loved and appreciated on a regular basis? And is that core to how you function even in your home? I think the power of touch is an important thing to talk about when we talk specifically about our boys, because oftentimes boys are accustomed to getting hugs and kisses and love when they are 3 and 4 and 5 years old. But then when they get to, 11 and 12 and then into their teenage years, oftentimes that falls off. But what we know is that no matter your age, touch is an extremely powerful way of expressing love and expressing care that
I think she's gotten frozen again. So our tech person is working diligently to try to get her back. But look, man, what some great information that she has passed on to us thus far. And Miss Vita, are you with me?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, let's talk and see, bring everybody kind of up to date with what we've learned so far. What was about dehumanization? Everybody's saying this is good stuff. Well, great. So tell us what really, helped you as you've heard some of this, talking about dehumanization and those kinds of things, talking about the power of touch and all of that. Give us something in the chat so we can kind of discuss it.
Yeah, kind of looking at those areas too, that not only starting with the dehumanization, but what Black boys need. I'm always looking on the, we have to have the foundation, but I'm always looking for how do we move forward? How do we help our young males? And that protection, connection, affection, direction, and correction. And I was just, yes, I think those are powerful. Definitely when it kind of hit home with me being an educator, when she talked about, understanding what's happening to your students in schools and really evaluating, is it a dehumanization activity that's happening, and how that we have to be their protector. We need to listen. We need to be in tune with that. That's why we need to be in schools, and we need to be listening to what our kids are saying about what is happening in the classrooms and what's happening in the cafeteria, all of those type things. So that was a powerful moment for me to reflect as an educator.
Yeah, I know. Yes. And so hopefully parents, you heard that. And so you will, I know we're virtually, learning now, but we need to make sure that your sons are still getting all the information, still performing well, and that kind of thing. The protection, direction, in guiding them in decisions and things that they make. I love that one about.
Yeah, I like where somebody put in chat that dads need to show affections. They're not always the enforcers, but that their young men need to see them being affectionate towards them. And I think that you're hitting it, that's important to have that deep relationship with family. And as my husband says to me many times, those traditions that we have, having our kids connected to our traditions, whether that's Sunday dinner and everybody's there and everybody's sharing. I know, those family traditions. I know we recently would have had a family reunion and everybody's talent would be on display. So just thinking about those traditions in a community and family that we can keep our males and females connected to.
Yes. And I know our children, I'm speaking for my two, they would always hate going to the family reunion. But they don't understand that's where they learn about their history and learn what's important. And so those kinds of things they definitely need to continue to do. Ms. Vita, go ahead with another one.
Yes, and so again, going back to, she talked about connecting to institutions, and I was saying today, I know my granddaughters right now are those community places that we need to find those positive community connections for our children. I know my granddaughters, while we're at BMW today, my granddaughters are at Black Achievers, and so looking for those positive reinforcing community situations that we can attach our children to, that also will lift them up instead of dehumanizing them. So we have to be, I know there's recently Roz was on a show on a Thursday called Face It, which we have in Fayette County, and there was a plethora of youth programs that were on there with the YMCA, with Junior Manners, with BMWs. So looking for those community based institutions that we can connect our children to, because she talked about peers having that influence. So if we're surrounding them with peers in those groups, which we know are often a positive influence, then they're going to meet some folks like in BMW, where you'll have a brotherhood for life, where you will meet people on the same path as you and want to go further. So I think that was a moment too, that was another, just hit me aha moment. Someone else talked about men are vital in boys' life, and we love that women are helping, but we need men engaging, and so that is absolutely, we know as women that we can love our males, we can shout, push them and love them, but we absolutely cannot take the place of a male teaching them how to be men. That's something that we are not privy to, and so as much as we love them, as much as we support them, as much as we're pushing them, there has to be that male engagement in their life. And that can happen through coaches and mentors and so many different areas. Somebody is quoting, I think Keisha Koza, saying they are worth the struggle, and we definitely believe that they are worth the struggle. And that's why we stay in the struggle with them. But you know what? I decided, through this pandemic that, 10 years from now, I don't want to be going through this same struggle that we went through 50 years ago. I really, think the moment is now for us to be engaged as a community, to be engaged as families, to be engaged as parents and grandparents, so that 10 years from now, we don't have to march for the same things that we marched for, 50, 60 years ago.
Send us something else from the chat that came out. I love that part. That's one of the things that we're trying to do through BMW is to show all of our young men that they're valued, help them to know their purpose, how to go about fulfilling that purpose, and then, sending them off knowing, as we've partnered with you as parents, that they'll be ready for the world out there.
And I think, and when she talked about, those 4 childhood questions, and those were riveting questions for us, that children ask, am I wanted? Am I valued? And how we as parents, answer that question by saying you are welcomed and you are a blessing. So every child is a blessing, and you are welcomed. You're welcomed in this family. You're welcomed in this world. I always love when I go to places and you see those stickers that say, I belong here. Our young men, our children need to know you belong here. We desire you to be here. And so having that, and then I loved what she said about that second question, what is my purpose in life? And that all of us are tied to a sacred purpose. If we could ever get to that, if our young men could ever really discover their sacred purpose, man, watch out, they will be on fire.
Yes, yes, yes.
I love someone said ministering to their strengths. A lot of times we want to say, oh, you need to build up your weakness, but we also need to build up our strengths, because that's the area where we excel in. We can also build those up as well. So I think that's a good point as well.
Yes, that was great. All right, we got her back. So she's back. You back, Dr. Bryant?
Yes, I'm back, and we're just going to do this from my phone.
Okay.
Because Alabama is not cooperating with us today and this internet. So we were on the power of touch, and I talked a bit about that and its importance. But we can move now to talk about direction, because I know we also have to be mindful of time. And so this area of providing direction for our young people is around providing for them or helping them to hone their clear purpose, value, and role in society. Asking them, as a young person, what is the problem in society that you want to solve? or what is the impact that you want to have on the world in which you live? And then helping them to, from the answer to that question, get to a place of crafting their purpose and what is their value in society. Similarly, posing that same question to them about what is the role that they want to have in their local community or in their school or their extended family. And that could be a number of things, you know. So what is your purpose and your value as you think about your extended family and the other people that you love? Is there a mentorship role that you want to fulfill as a young person? How do you want to be regarded in your community? You know, is there a local community activity that you want to spearhead in order to make your community a better place? Helping them to find purpose and value in that. And then what is their purpose and their value and their role in your family and in your home life? You know, one of the things I talk with my son about all the time is his purpose and his role in making our family and our household run effectively. So not thinking about his chores as, oh, this is another thing I got to do, but how is you doing your chores contributing to the value of our home and our home life? You know, how is your relationship with your younger sister contributing to the value of our home life? And how do you want to show up in the world? Making sure that we are helping our young people to craft that direction, because having that sense of direction keeps them on track, even during times when what is happening in society that may be dehumanizing is trying to derail them. They have a laser focus and a direction because of the work that we've done with them. And then the final area is correction. And this is where we focus on loving guidance, correction, and accountability for the way that they engage. So first, for the way that they engage in society as a whole, the way that they engage in their local community, their school environment, and with their extended family members, and the way that they engage at home. So, you know, no child is perfect, but what are the ways that we are helping to guide their path by correcting them when they kind of sometimes veer off, and holding them accountable for the way that they show up and for the way that they engage with others and for the way that they take care of themselves. So if you have a direction and a clear path, but you're not doing any of the actions or the activities that help you to get to your place of purpose and your sense of value in society, then there's some correcting that we need to do, and that's okay. But that is the fifth aspect of what our young people need in order for them to stay laser focused on becoming all that they can become, because we live in a society that unfortunately is asking them to become and to thrive in spite of. So we have the dual work to do of raising our children in the here and now, but also being staunch advocates for changing society so that perhaps the future generation does not have to work through some of these same struggles. And then I think the final thing that I want for us to all remember is that this is a continual cycle. Our focus on how to do this shifts as life happens and as our young people grow and mature and get older, that it's really mostly about consistency and continually keeping in front of our minds, my goal is for my child to thrive. Or for our young people, my goal is for me to thrive. My goal is for my peers to thrive. And that requires consistency. And that requires remaining focused and staying on the mark. Focus on the quality of your engagements as parents with your young people over quantity. So it's not about how much money is spent, and it's not about how long the activity is, but it's about the quality of the activities and the conversations and the meaningful moments that we have with our children. And be gentle with yourself. You know, we know that Black parenting is a political act because we are trying to liberate the minds of our young people beyond what society says that they are. So be gentle with yourself. And the final thing is having this intergenerational frame of mind and looking at our young men and recognizing that I am raising somebody's grandfather. And so generations, 2 generations from now, this young man, you know, if he chooses to become a parent, is then going to take everything that I poured into him and use it to raise his own children. And that child will take everything that was poured into him or her and use it to raise their own child. And so, you know, we are looking not just in the moment and the here and now, but what is the way that we are influencing and impacting Black lives and Black family for generations to come because of the moments that we have now in the ways that we focus on raising our young people. And so we come back to this slide of the words and all of the beautiful words that we use to describe, the beautiful adjectives that we use to describe our young men. Our young men are gifted and they're diligent, they're talented, they're joyful, they're valiant. They are fighters, you know, and above all else, they are sacred. And it is our sacred responsibility to raise them and keep them on the path of thriving, and their sacred responsibility to hold on to the purpose that they know they have for their lives. And so, it has just been wonderful to share this time and space with you all today. And I apologize for these technical difficulties, but I hope that in this dialogue that we've had, that you've gotten something out of it that ignites a fire in you for this new school year. And as you launch into learning, even though we are in the place of a pandemic still and dealing with so many issues, that you still see a path forward that is beautiful and that is valuable for you and your young people for this coming year. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Do we have any questions? Do we have time to take a few Q&A? You're getting a bunch of thank yous.
I'm seeing the chat. I can see them on the bottom of my phone.
You're getting a bunch of thank yous and a lot of great response. Does
They
anyone
want to know, will they receive copies of the slides?
So I emailed copies of the slides, and you all are welcome to share them with the participants. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone have any questions? Oh, wait a minute. Corey Peoples had a question. It went real fast. Okay. Corey, come back with your question. You got a question?
Oh, I see it. What
Okay.
do you suggest we as parents do when we see a friend of our sons struggling and their parents are not proactive? You know, I really take the village mindset and wrapping my arms around other people's children, you know, with permission, of course. And so I think making room for your son's friend to have some of those meaningful conversations in your home, and to be able to impart your knowledge to that friend. And then if you feel comfortable going to the parent and saying, you know, these are some of the things that I've been noticing and I want to help. We have to get away from being so territorial about our own individual families and coming back to these concepts of community and using the community to raise our kids.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Well, it's a bunch of thank yous saying great information. We will get you a copy of her PowerPoint presentation. Someone said, here's a question that says, I am a new mom. What should my next step? She's a new mom in the program, and she's asking what should her next step be?
So is she asking that to me or to one of the program coordinators?
Like, you know, what should be her next step in helping her child with what you gave today?
Oh, okay. You know, I think being new into the program, beginning to establish some relationships with some other moms would be a really good next step, to be able to create, like I said, that sense of community. And then I think, taking the time to walk through with your child the presentation that happened today and ask him, what are some of the things that resonated with you? What are some of the ways that you think we could do things differently in our home to keep you on this path of thriving? Having those kinds of conversations.
Okay.
And if they're talking about BMW program, I think by you making it a priority, it will become a priority for them. And so we always talk about that being that scholar first. I mean, we want them involved in athletics. We want them involved in the arts program. We want them involved in their community, but they are a scholar first. And so if you make this a priority, we will wrap our arms around them, and we will wrap our arms around as a community, and they will build a brotherhood like no other.
Yeah. Here's a question that someone says, they need discipline ideas for a strong-willed, opinionated 6-year-old. Prayer.
So what I've always said is you make the discipline match the issue.
Okay.
So, if your child has broken something, or they have, talked back or whatever, make the correction match. So my son did a whole lot of writing when he was 6 and 7 because he was a little mouthy. And so I would make him write and write about the issue and write about what just happened between us. And, because he was 6, he couldn't get all of the words out. I would sit and I would help him and we would spell it out. I find that things like, timeouts, et cetera, are not as effective if it's not connected to the thing that was done wrong. And so, making sure that it's tied back so they understand. And they know that they don't want that discipline to ever happen again, if that's helpful.
Okay. Here's another parent says, how do you help parents when they are in predominantly white spaces that their child continues to, be proud of who they are when they're in predominantly white spaces?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've done is making sure that we have room for those conversations at home. So yes, you may go to school in a predominantly white space, or you may live in a predominantly white neighborhood, but inside the walls of this house, we focus on culture, and we make sure that we talk about culture, and we talk about history, and the stories of the people that came before you so that you can still walk in pride. And then, even though they may be in a predominantly white space, maybe some of their school assignments, they use that as an opportunity to lift up and feature Blackness to the extent that they're comfortable. So I would encourage my son to do his book reports on Black authors, to do his science reports on Black scientists, for example. Those were all things that helped. And then my mother, what she did when we grew up was she made sure that our extracurricular spaces were Black spaces to help to offset what our school environment looked like. So being in the BMW program, that is important because it becomes a space of nurturing culture. Whatever their other extracurricular activities are, making sure that those are spaces where their culture is affirmed and appreciated.
Okay.
Rod,
Right. Yes.
I always say a child who is only educated in school is a miseducated child.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So they get education at home also, not just at school.
Yes, great quote. Dr. Bryant, thank you so very much. You will be hearing from us again. Hopefully one day we will get to meet you in person. And
yes.
we will bring you to Lexington, and you will get to see all these parents and their sons usually on a kickoff day like today. We would have had anywhere from 750 to 900 kids and their parents here.
Wow. Wow.
So we're on the battlefield, and this is our mission. Our theme for this year is SOS, Save Our Sons. And so we thank you for helping us to get off to a great start. And as I said, you will be hearing from us again. Thank you so very, very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I really appreciate the opportunity, and you all are doing powerful and meaningful work. And I would love to remain connected.
We will, definitely so.
Thank you.
Thank you. To all of our parents, now we're getting ready to go into our sessions. All the elementary parents will meet together. Dr. Cleveland and I will meet with all the middle school and high school parents to go over our schedule to talk about how we're going to do this virtually. Now, help me to understand. There's another link they have to go to, right, Miss Glenda and Vita? You should have gotten another link.
Yes, ma'am. There is a parent session link. When we leave this link, they will go to the preparatory. Our K through 5 parents will go to the preparatory BMW link. Yes.
Okay. And then those you are in middle and high school, you will go to that link. So we're going to take a short break. It is 11:17. At 11:20, please be in your sessions. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you. Now I gotta find it.
Can I?